So UFC 308 takes place this weekend, and I'm going to give my predictions for the entire card. Now, this is a stacked card from top to bottom, and the good thing about this card is it starts very early, which is great for UK and European fans because we're not getting screwed over having to wait until 5 a.m. for the main event. So I'm super excited about this card, but I'm going to give my predictions for this card, and let's get straight into the main event, the featherweight title fight between Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. Now, this is a classic striker versus striker match. Obviously, Topuria is coming off a spectacular knockout over Alexander Volkanovski, and Max Holloway is coming off a spectacular knockout over Justin Gaethje. Now, in terms of striking, these fighters are both pretty much on the same level. Obviously, Max Holloway has the reach advantage. He has a 5-inch reach advantage in this fight. So, this fight, in terms of my prediction, I probably think that Ilia Topuria is going to win this fight by split decision. Now, I say that because this fight is most probably going to take place on the feet. Most of this fight will take place on the feet. I can't really see Max Holloway finishing Ilia Topuria because I do think Ilia Topuria's boxing is high level. But of course, Max Holloway has a lot of experience in the striking department, in the championship department, and Holloway has a lot of experience in terms of championship fights and championship rounds. So I do believe that he is going to be able to use his experience against Topuria in this fight. But with that being said, I do think Topuria has the better boxing. He's a better boxer than Max Holloway. His combinations are way more complex. You know, his combinations are very unorthodox. His ability to switch stances and the way that Topuria sets up his combinations, it's very unorthodox and it's very different, and it's never seen by any other fighter in the UFC. So Max Holloway needs to watch out because Ilia Topuria, his boxing is very dangerous, and of course Max Holloway's boxing is dangerous as well, and he does have the reach advantage. But if I had to make my quick prediction for this fight, I would probably say that Ilia Topuria will win this fight by split decision, because the thing is, because the boxing and the striking is such on an even level, if Max Holloway fights Topuria and this fight is even debatable, the champion always wins when it comes to a debatable fight, and to be the champion, you have to beat the champion. And if it's debatable in any way, the nod usually goes to the champion, and I think that'll be the case in this fight. I think Max Holloway will obviously put up a good fight. This will be a very closely contested fight, but I do think that Ilia Topuria will get the nod and he will win the fight by split decision. So in the co-main event, the Wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, is making his return against Robert Whittaker. Now, this, in my opinion, is, besides Gilbert Burns, this is the toughest matchup of Khamzat Chimaev's career. Obviously, he's moving up to middleweight. He has fought at middleweight before, but this is his most toughest matchup in any division of Khamzat Chimaev's career. And Whittaker is a very legitimate opponent. He's coming off a spectacular knockout over Ikram Aliskerov. A lot of people expected Whittaker to lose that fight, but he proved the world wrong once again. Again, Whittaker has a lot of experience in the middleweight division. He has a lot of championship experience. Yes, he lost to Dricus du Plessis, but he's on a 2-fight win streak, and he has a lot of experience when it comes to the middleweight division. Khamzat Chimaev, of course, coming off a very dominant win over Kamaru Usman. Again, I spoke about that in my last video, that I don't really see that as a real win against a legitimate middleweight contender. With that being said, his performance was dominant, and in this fight I think we're going to see Khamzat use his wrestling and his grappling. I think this is going to be his path to victory to win this fight. He's going to exploit Whittaker's, lack of wrestling and ground game. He's going to try and get Whittaker on his back and grind him out, potentially go for the submission or the ground and pound. And also, I do see a lot of this fight being contested on the feet. And, I do think that Whittaker is going to be worried about Khamzat's takedowns, and the way that Khamzat fights, he uses a lot of feints, a lot of head movements, and this obviously causes a lot of confusion for his opponents because they're waiting for that takedown, and then Khamzat can either shoot him for the takedown or he'll use a lot of feints to set up the knockout. He'll probably throw that overhand right as well. So for me, I do think that Khamzat Chimaev wins this fight. He'll win this fight by unanimous decision. I do think he has what it takes to, beat Whittaker. Whittaker, obviously highly experienced, is a high-level fighter. But I think, you know, in terms of the climate as well, I think the climate is going to play a factor in his fight. This has taken place in Saudi Arabia. For the past 2 years, Khamzat has been living in Saudi Arabia, Khamzat has been living in Abu Dhabi, which is a very hot country. So, of course, I do think that will play in Khamzat's favor as well. On top of that, he's been working a lot on his strength and conditioning. He's put on a lot of size and a lot of muscle coming into this fight, and I do think Khamzat is just going to come into this fight. He's going to try and start ragdolling Robert Whittaker from the first round, and he's probably going to try and get the submission straight away and finish Robert Whittaker as fast as possible, because if Khamzat wins this fight, Khamzat is getting a title shot straight away. He's going to be fighting Dricus du Plessis or whoever's next for the title. Khamzat Chimaev is going to be next for the middleweight title. So I think he's going to want to come into this fight, put on an impressive performance and dominate Robert Whittaker and finish this fight as fast as possible. But in my opinion, I think Khamzat Chimaev wins this fight by unanimous decision. For the next fight, Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Lerone Murphy, of course, my fellow Mancunian. So I respect Lerone Murphy, and I'm a big fan of Lerone Murphy. And of course, Dan Ige, you know, the Hawaiian legend. Again, I do think most of this fight will take place on the feet. With that being said, I think Dan Ige will try to implement his wrestling and take this fight to the ground. But Lerone Murphy has very good takedown defense. He has explosive striking. I think we'll see a lot of kicks on a lot of boxing from Lerone Murphy, because that is really, he specializes in kickboxing, and that's what he likes to do. He likes to keep the fight standing. You know, he likes to throw a lot of kicks, go for head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks, and also uses boxing to set up the takedowns as well. So I think we could see a potential knockout in this fight. I think Lerone Murphy could potentially get the knockout, so I will pick Lerone Murphy by knockout. For the next fight, the light heavyweight contenders bout between Magomed Ankalaev and Alexander Rakic. Now, Magomed Ankalaev is ranked number 2 in the light heavyweight division. Rakic is ranked number 5. So this is pretty much a contenders fight if you look at it. Of course, Rakic is a very explosive striker. He's very fast, very powerful, very explosive. He loves to keep the fight standing. But Magomed Ankalaev is also a very experienced and very technical striker, a very focused, very careful striker. But I do believe that Magomed Ankalaev will try and take this fight to the ground. He will try and take Rakic down, because that is Rakic's weakness. His wrestling and his ground game is weaker than his striking. So for this reason, I do think Magomed Ankalaev will try to take this fight down. He'll try to get the submission or the ground and pound finish against Alexander Rakic. But in my opinion, I do believe that Magomed Ankalaev will win this fight, probably by a second or third round stoppage. I'm going to go with the submission, second round submission for Magomed Ankalaev. And then for the next fight, we've got a middleweight bout between Sharon Magomedov and Arman Petrosyan. Now, Magomedov, obviously a very accomplished, very spectacular, very entertaining striker. And Arman Petrosyan is also very entertaining and a very high-level striker as well. And of course, both of these fighters have got something to prove, because they're trying to work their way up in the rankings. Both are kind of prospects in the UFC. Petrosyan's stand-up is no joke, though. He's very powerful, very strong. And I do think that Petrosyan is Magomedov's toughest opponent to date. I do think the majority of this fight will take place on the feet. I see Petrosyan potentially trying to work in some wrestling and try and take this fight to the ground, but really I do see the majority of this fight taking place on the feet. And you know, if it does take place on the feet, I will probably give the edge to Magomedov, just because he has a wider array of strikes. He likes to use his kicks, his boxing, he stays light on his feet, spinning back kicks, head kicks, elbows. So my prediction is that Magomedov will win this fight, potentially by a TKO or by decision. Now I'm just going to give my quick predictions for the prelims as well. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I do Jeff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. I think dos Anjos wins this fight. He's just a more powerful, more explosive fighter. He's got way more experience. Of course, Jeff Neal is ranked number 10, but I just see Rafael dos Anjos is better in the striking department, and he could even potentially take this fight to the ground and go for a submission. Rafael dos Anjos, of course, crazy with the leg kicks. He has good boxing, he has good cardio, good conditioning, and I just think he's a better fighter than Jeff Neal. So my prediction is that dos Anjos will win this fight by decision. The next fight, we've got Mateusz Rebecki versus Oral Bai. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce the name correctly. My quick prediction for this fight is that Mateusz Rebecki will win this fight. He's an extremely explosive fighter. He's very underestimated, and a lot of people tend to look at him because he's small. They kind of underestimate the damage that he can do. But I do think Mateusz Rebecki will win this fight by TKO or by knockout. Said Nurmagomedov versus Daniel Santos. Daniel Santos, of course, coming out of Shoot Their Box with Charles Oliveira. Said Nurmagomedov coming out of Russia. Said Nurmagomedov kind of reminds me of a miniature version of Magomed Sharipov, obviously the legend out of Dagestan. The way that he strikes is very, technical. He does spinning back kicks, head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks. The way that he boxes, it's very technical, but he does remind me of Zabit Magomed Sharipov. Not obviously as spectacular, but his spinning back kicks are very reminiscent of Zabit Magomed Sharipov. And, of course, he's got great wrestling and great takedowns as well. Daniel Santos is a very solid striker. He obviously has the typical Muay Thai style, very solid leg kicks and boxing. He's also very gritty when it comes to the wrestling and grappling, but I just think that Said Nurmagomedov will be a little bit too fast for him, and he's a better striker, and I do think he'll use his footwork, his distance management, he'll use his boxing and his kicks very well, and I think that Said Nurmagomedov will win this fight by decision. I'll boost Magomedov versus Bruno Ferreira. My quick prediction is Bruno Ferreira will win this fight. I just think he's more explosive, more powerful. And for the heavyweight bout, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Justin Tafa, I think Kennedy Nzechukwu will get it done. He's just a lot bigger, he's got a little bit more power. Of course, Justin Tafa is very explosive, he's got a lot of power, but I think Nzechukwu will look to implement his wrestling and his grappling. He'll look to try and close the distance on Justin Tafa so he can't get off those overhand rights and get off his power. So that's my prediction, Kennedy Nzechukwu for the heavyweight fight. Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. My prediction for that fight is Basharat. I just think he's a better striker. He's got more experience overall in his career. So my prediction is Basharat wins this fight. Ismail Nordia versus Bruno Silva. I'm going to go with Bruno Silva. I just think he has a lot more experience and a lot more power. For the welterweight bout, Renat Fakhretdinov versus Nursultan Ruziboev. I think Ruziboev wins this fight. I think he is the better striker. And then for the light heavyweight bout between Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Kikera, I'll probably give the edge to Ibo Aslan. I think he's just a lot more powerful, a lot more explosive, and he has the better striking. So my prediction is Aslan will win this fight, potentially by knockout or decision. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for my predictions for UFC 308. Just to let you know, I am going to be live streaming this event on Saturday, so make sure you tune in. And also, I just want to say thank you to everybody that tuned into my live stream for PFL, because I got 65,000 views in 3 hours, which is absolutely insane. So thank you to everybody that tuned in for the live stream. So if you're watching UFC 308, don't forget to tune into the live stream. I'll be giving my play-by-play breakdowns and my predictions for the fights. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for my predictions for UFC 308. I hope you enjoyed my predictions, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.